Jerry Seinfeld's been in the news a little bit lately. He was given an honorary degree from Duke University, where he also gave the commencement speech. Duke students walk out of Jerry Seinfeld's commencement speech, amid wave of graduation anti-war protests. Comedian Jerry Seinfeld was met with a wave of boos Sunday when students at Duke University in North Carolina walked out just before his commencement speech, the latest in a wave of anti-war protests at college graduations across the country this weekend. Not only was Seinfeld, 70, delivering the speech at the school's football stadium, but he was also receiving an honorary degree from the school where his son is enrolled and from which his daughter graduated. As he was being introduced, boos could be heard on the official commencement live stream, which we'll get to in a second. We're excited and delighted for the class of 2024 and their families. We understand the depth of feeling in our community, and as we have all year, we respect the right of everyone at Duke to express their views peacefully without preventing graduates and their families from celebrating their achievement, Duke spokesperson Frank Tramble said in a statement after this event. So we got a little split screen here. We have a video from the official commencement live stream, which syncs perfectly
Jerry is
with the
also
walkout.
serving as our commencement speaker today.
There's some walkouts.
So what's the big deal about our commencement speaker?
What are they booing? The fact that the women and children being killed? Oh, right, that. Yeah. Thanks for reminding me. Yeah, they're a little upset about that. Oh, I got it. I'll stand here and smile until they go away. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, what's the big deal about our commencement speaker? Aside from the fact that we're perhaps all wondering whether he's wearing a puffy shirt under this gown.
What a joke, get it? Like in the show, he wore a puffy shirt? That would look silly. That would look silly. Unlike us now, we all look like we're about to run train on a dead goat. This isn't a silly ceremony at all. No. What an unfunny, unoriginal joke from an untalented, unremarkable midwit presiding over a very cult-like ceremony here. Emerson College in Boston also had protests at its commencement Sunday. Some students ditched their graduation gowns, leaving them on stage after they collected diplomas, while others emblazoned their graduation caps with Free Palestine. A student shouted Free Palestine while accepting a diploma, and another crossed the stage with raised hands, Free Gaza, written across their palms. Some students showed off Palestinian flags as they crossed the stage, and a number of graduates donned keffiyehs with their graduation garb. Throughout the ceremony, speakers had to take long pauses during their speeches or speak loudly over chanting students. So we have here some footage from the Emerson ceremony. Some with the flags. A lot of kids had keffiyehs on over the gowns. Some of them lowered the gown so people could see them as they went across the stage. Some people incorporating that into their graduation wear.
Alex Elliott Astort Fabra. Sophie D. Beers Arthur. Catherine Roderick. Maxwell James Cooper. David Martin Estabrook.
There you go. So lots of disruptions there at Emerson. At the Virginia Commonwealth University ceremony on Saturday, students walked out of Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin's commencement address. Though the school said disruptions would not be tolerated, the VCU chapter of Students for Justice in Palestine organized the silent walkout in protest of Youngkin's policies, as well as his role in the arrests of pro-Palestinian student protesters last month. So here they are at UCV or UVC, whatever they call it.
Graduates,
This was a pretty big
what a
walkout.
distinct privilege it is to join you this morning to honor and congratulate the class of 20.
And this was actually more coordinated. A lot of high school students staged walkouts against Youngkin as well.
And it is on this day before Mother's Day where we recognize the many mothers who are here graduating.
So that's a pretty big one, as you can see.
That's
Quite a few.
Yeah.
Yep. Based, no doubt. Protests also erupted at different ceremonies at the University of California, Berkeley on Friday and Saturday. During Friday's law school graduation, students removed their gowns to reveal white shirts that read, "UC Divest." The school addressed the protest in a statement that said graduation was able to continue regardless. The next day, chants of Free Palestine erupted as the student speaker tried to deliver her address at a different ceremony. A group of about 20 students stood up and waved Palestinian flags as well, the San Francisco Chronicle reported. About 300 others stood up and moved to a different area of the venue, according to the Chronicle, as counter-protesters chanted, "Kick them out." So here's some of the proceedings at UC Berkeley. So there's the UC Divest sign.
Carol Price, what do you say? Carol Price, what do you say? How many kids have you killed today? How many kids have you killed today? Free Palestine! 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 End the occupation now! End the occupation now! End the occupation now! End the occupation now! Carol Price, you can't hide!
That's a huge school. Look at that.
You're committing genocide! You're committing genocide!
The occupation has got to go, hey, hey! Ho, ho! The occupation has got to go, hey, hey! Ho, ho! The occupation has got to go, hey, hey! Ho, ho! The occupation has got to go, hey, hey! Ho, ho! The occupation has got to go, hey, hey! Ho, ho! The occupation has got to go, hey, hey!
So, you know, it's kind of humbling when you see that crowd of kids there, as much as you're rooting them on, then you look at that huge sea of people who's not joining them, right? It's like, oh, man.
Yep.
Deck is
Well,
still stacked against us, is it not? But good on them, man. It's great to see, especially the walkouts. I love just the vote of no confidence, you know, because ultimately, you know, this is about building a new system after this one inevitably just undoes itself. And so we need to build a new economic order with new rules. And the fact that you have so many kids on what is, I'm sure a lot of these kids look forward to this day for a long time as a very important rite of passage into the system. Now they are treating it the exact opposite way by walking out of the ceremony. And so, of course, they didn't do it in the kind of numbers we hoped they would. But the fact that you're seeing this at all, this didn't happen at all during the Iraq War protests. I went to school during the Iraq War. I was in high school in the run-up to the Iraq War. I would have definitely known about it if kids were walking out en masse at schools throughout the country. I don't think one college protest made national news at that time. So this is different. It's much different. It has a much different feel. The numbers are much larger in terms of people who are tapped into what's going on. And despite the fact that, you know, in a huge stadium like this, it's easy to get discouraged and say, oh, look at all the people who are just watching, doing nothing. This is a lot more than we had when I was growing up, a lot more than we had in the early mid-2000s. And so the kids are all right, moving in the right direction.
Yeah. Remember, any kind of counter cultural movement, any kind of challenge to an established order, it's always a minority.
Of course,
Most people keep their heads down in any age, in any circumstances. I don't know if we have numbers on this, but as bad as things were in aristocratic France, I guarantee you it was a minority of the population that was involved in the revolution.
Sure. Yeah.
It's always a minority. So that doesn't mean anything, because when you have a dedicated minority, they can move everybody else, because everybody else, they're all non-player characters. They just go with whatever's happening. These are the people who are actually in the arena moving society. That having been said, the scum of the earth, we haven't gotten to this story because there's so much to cover. They're suing protesters. You have these Israelis who are suing protesters now. So what's the purpose of that? To intimidate people. Like to force them the expense of having to hire a defense lawyer to deal with this. They're trying to intimidate people. And I got to say, once again, we need Israel because of anti-Semitism. Motherfuckers, I cannot imagine what more you could do to reinforce anti-Semitic stereotypes than start suing people for protesting against your fucking apartheid state. Oh, thanks, Israel. Thank you very much. As a Jew, I really appreciate you not reinforcing stereotypes of Jews as litigious people who file unreasonable suits.
Yeah. Yeah. And, also the thing you have to keep in mind, because that's a good point on that score, but it's also, I think, an important point when you're talking about the size and scope of these protests. The kids who are still doing this are the kids who have withstood round after round, wave after wave of intimidation, not just legal threats in terms of lawsuits. They've been smeared in the media nonstop. They've been beaten up by the cops, right? That's why they wear the masks on their face.
I've never heard of such a thing. I have never heard of such a thing, of suing protesters for protesting from a foreign country. A foreign country. I've never heard of that.
Right. Exactly. So they got masks on their face because they don't want to be identified, not just because maybe an employer will put them on a blacklist, but they don't want their friend to see them on the local news or a family member to see them on TV, because there's stigma attached with that. Why? Because they've been smeared in the media. And so, we expected that these commencement weekends would be met with protests. This is just the first of a few. Obviously, not every commencement it happens on the same weekend, so there will probably be more this upcoming weekend. And then Memorial Day, that's kind of the big one. That's when a lot of campuses have them. In fact, Joe Biden is speaking at a commencement address in Georgia either later this month or early next month. So that is the one that all eyes are on in terms of who's going to say what there, because there will definitely be protests there, sure as we're sitting here.
Please clap.